mountain, but also so that we can see the farther reaches of our boundary, of our tribal boundary. So here we are, and if you look that way, you can see Maungarei Mountain, which is not in Ngāti Pāoa territory. And so as Māori, we defined our boundaries by the landmarks. And so we say from mountain to mountain, from mountain to river, river to sea, sea to mountain, or island, or lake, or bush, or forest. That's how we mark out our areas, or rohe, as we call them in Māori. So Maungarei Mountain is on the shores of the Manukau Harbour, and so belongs to our neighbours of Te Ahiwaru, Te Akitai, Waiohua, Ngāti Tamoho, and all of the other Waikato Waiohua tribes. So where Maungarei Mountain is, there are two names for Maungarei Mountain in Te Reo Māori. Does anyone know them? And don't say Maungarei. So the first name is Te Arapueru. Te Arapueru. And the second name is Te Pane o Mataoho. Or, for others, Te Pane o Mataaho, depending on who's telling the story. Okay, so that is where Ngāti Whātua, our neighbours in Ōrākei here, and Central Auckland, that's where they signed Te Tiriti o Waitangi. That's where our other relatives, close kin to Ngāti Pāoa, Waikato, Ngāti Mahuta, and the Waiohua tribes also signed Te Tiriti o Waitangi there. Now, if we come back across here and look down to Sylvia Park, where the cranes are, behind the cranes, or in front of the cranes, depending on which side, on the other side of the cranes is an old past site of Ngāti Pāoa, a village, an outpost. And that hill there is commonly known as Hamlin's Hill, but the Māori name is Mutukaroa. And so on the other side, towards the Penrose side, if you drive around, not Pacific Rise, the other road there, if you drive around to the other side, there's the entrance and the car park if you wanted to walk up to Mutukaroa, Hamlin's Hill, that you go from the Penrose side. So that is our southern border for here, for this eastern area. So for Ngāti Pāoa, are they going to go?
No.
So, where was I? That's our southern border. And beyond Mutukaroa, we don't venture, we don't claim. So Mutukaroa is our southern post, and then if you look to, now that's also in our treaty settlement bill, in our claims, and so that will come back to Ngāti Pāoa in a co-governance model between Ngāti Pāoa and the council. But the council does the upkeep, or they manage the place, because we don't have the resources like they do. So that's in our treaty settlement, and it's all of that green space at the top going towards the right-hand side as well, and all the way down to the back. So that's Mutukaroa. Can everyone say Mutu? Mutukaroa. M-U-T-U-K-A Macron, R-O-A. Mutukaroa, one word. Now, Sylvia Park School had an initiative named after that hill a couple of years ago. I don't know if they reached out to our iwi though to ask for permission, but they used it anyway. So that's our maunga, and down here is Pamua, the basin, otherwise known as Te Kai Ahiku. Te Kai Ahiku. So Te Kai, can everyone say Te?
Te
Kai.
Kai
Ahiku.
Hiku.
Ka pai? And that's the Māori name for Pamua Basin. Now, the basin was a place where our taniwha, our tupuna taniwha, moko i ka hikuwaru lived and resided. And so what the taniwha would do is that the taniwha would go up and down the Tāmaki estuary chasing fish and then chase them down into the basin and trap them in there. On the outgoing tide, the taniwha would wait in its pool at the mouth or the entrance of the basin called Te Kōpua Ahiku. And the taniwha would wait there with its mouth open and feast. Yummy, yummy. And so the basin is called Te Kai Ahiku, or the food bowl of Hiku. Hiku being the abbreviation of Moko Ika Hiku Waru. And then at the mouth of the basin is a deep pool. There's a pool there. Not one that I'm encouraging you to go and jump into. No. This should not come back up. But that is called Te Kōpua Ahiku. That is where our taniwha would hide and would wait for the little fish to go into the basin and then appear upon the outgoing tide. Because what do fish do when the tide goes out? They follow the tide and the current. And then when the tide comes back in, they do the same. Ka pai? Now at this end of the basin is a spring. Freshwater spring. And the hotel and the conference centre over there takes its name from it. But they've only shortened the name to Waipuna. Then the proper full name of our spring there, or Punawai, is Te Waipuna Arangi Ātea. Te Waipuna Arangi Ātea. Now, two of our ancestors who came on the Tainui Waka, Taiki and Taikehu, were sent down the river to explore when the Tainui Waka came in ashore at Karaka Bay in the 1300s. And when they came into the basin here, they came around the side and they found the spring there and they drank its water, and it reminded them of the spring of the water from their homeland, from Hawaii in eastern Polynesia, the islands of Ra'iatea. Now, in Tahitian dialect, the word is Ra'iatea, but in Māori dialect, New Zealand Māori dialect, it's Rangi Ātea. So we say the rangi and they drop the NG. So, he kākano a hau I rui a mai rangi Ātea. Has anyone heard that saying? It was quite a popular song a couple of years ago. He kākano a hau I rui a mai I rangi Ātea. I won't go up. And so, the full name for our spring down here, Te Waipuna Arangi Ātea, references the springs back in Ra'iatea in Tahiti. And so, as we go throughout our journey today, you will see that there are place names, landmarks here in Aotearoa, which are purely Aotearoa born out of this land. And then you will see that there are names that our ancestors, our Māori ancestors, brought with them from eastern Polynesia in general. Ka pai? So if you go down the back here, down behind Rebel Sports, and then see where the bridges that goes over the train track there. There's a board there which talks about Te Waipuna Rangiatea if you ever want to go out of your way to go and have a read and learn a bit more. Now, from Mutukaroa to Te Kaia Hiku to Te Waipuna Rangiatea to Te Kōpua a Hiku. Okay, so there I've already shared four culturally significant sites of significance for Ngāti Pāwa. Ka pai? So let's go through those names again. Mutukaroa. Turn to the person next to you and say, have a turn at saying it together. Ka pai? I'm loving the stressing of the double vowel here. Over here, they got it on point. Well done. Give them a paki. Oh, well done. Okay, Mutukaroa. So when it's a macron, it's a double vowel, stressed long vowel sound. Ka pai? Te kai a hiku. Well, this side's talking, this side's not. Come on, guys. Ladies and gentlemen. Te kai a hiku. Te Waipuna Rangiatea. Te Kōpua a Hiku. Ka pai. Now, Ngāti Pāwa, when we lived here, we lived in hapu, and hapu are units, family units made up into one, so a clan or a sub-tribe. And so Ngāti Pāwa lived here as hapu, and our three main hapu for Ngāti Pāwa that lived here were Te Uri Karaka, Ngāti Hura, and Ngāti Kapu. So, when I say that Ngāti Pāwa are the mana whenua for this area, it's not Ngāti Pāwa in general, but it's the hapu of Ngāti Pāwa which have always which have had continuous occupation of place. So those three hapu for Ngāti Pāwa have had continuous occupation of this area here. So Ngāti Pāwa has more than 20 hapu, but the other 17 hapu have not resided here permanently like my two hapu plus Te Uri Karaka. Ka pai?
17.
So that means that if the other 17 hapu came here and tried to put their stake in the ground, you know, they would be challenged and asked to remove their stake and go back to wherever they come from, even though we all belong to the same iwi, Ngāti Pāwa. Does everyone get that? Because those are some of the finer details of how we as Māori operate. And it's good to, rather than just generalising all of Ngāti Pāwa as being the same, no. Each hapu of Ngāti Pāwa has a specific right to a claim to place. Ka pai? So our southern border, if you remember the slides that I shared with you, goes all the way down to Te Aroha in the Hauraki Plains and comes all the way up to Te Arai Point. Now the three hapu that reside here or have mana tangata whenuatanga over this area may not have tangata whenua status in other parts of our tribal boundary. So that's how we as Māori assert ourselves over our whenua, is that we work in hapu units. Ka pai? So Ngāti Pāwa live here, and if you look down to the right hand side here, there's evidence of kumara pits and middens. So the Māori New World and the Māori Countdown, down there. Ka pai? So our people would store kumara under the earth. And then they had a technique where they would lay volcanic rocks on the foundation underneath, put the kumara on top, spread it out, and then start to layer it with other natural resources to keep it dry and compact. And then they would put volcanic rocks on top again, because then that would attract the heat and keep everything dry and warm. Ka pai? Indigenous knowledge. Beautiful. Any questions? No? I know it's a lot to take in. Now, if we look down to the south here, down to the Bombay Hills, the Māori name for Bombay Hills is Kakara Mea. Kakara Mea. And everyone say kakara. 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 Mea. Now, kakara is the Māori word for smell or scent. Scent. Kakara. Kakara. And mea is a thing. Like this. Mea. Like those. Mea. Like an object. Mea. So, that is the Māori name for the Bombay Hills. Now, Ngāti Pāwa, when the Crown was planning their invasion of the Waikato, they made a redoubt down at Pokeno, or Pōkino. The Māori name for Pokeno is Pōkino. Some person who can't spell use the English sound of ki, spelling it K-E-Y. K-E, but the Māori sound is K-I, Pōkino. So it's been misspelt for many a years. Now, if we come around to the side here, out to the east here, we see the Hunua Ranges. Can you all point to the Hunua Ranges? Okay, and just before it disappears in the mist, it's already disappeared, but way behind that ridge here is the tallest natural peak in Auckland, which is called Kohukohunui. And that is a significant maunga of Ngāti Pāwa. That is actually on the western shores of the Hauraki Gulf. So if you know your geography, you know where I'm talking. So Kohukohunui. Can everyone say kohu? Kohu. Nui. That is our maunga out in the Hunua Range. And that is the tallest natural peak in the Auckland region. So taller than any maunga in the Waitakere, taller than any maunga anywhere else here in central Auckland. Kohukohunui is the highest natural peak. Ka pai? And you can access it from the Hunua side if you park up near the waterfalls and then walk up that way. Quite a long walk. Or you can go over to the western shores of the Hauraki Gulf, over to a place called Waharo, and park up there and then climb up the maunga from that side. So that is a mountain that our ancestors dedicated or tied to the kingitanga or the king movement as a show of loyalty, as a show of like bending the knee. It's like bending the knee when you commit your mountain under the mountain of someone else or with the mountain of someone else. So Ngāti Pāwa were a tribe that was being played by all sides, by the Crown and by its own. And so within our iwi in the 1800s, you would see that Ngāti Pāwa, we had factions within our iwi. And so my ancestors who resided here in Auckland were labelled as Crown Loyalists. And then others who were down in the Waikato, our same people, were labelled as rebels. So if you've ever read any historical records, you will see that the Hauraki tribes, not one of the Hauraki tribes were labelled as being rebels, but they were Crown loyalists. And then if you look at our kin or our whanaunga in the Waikato, all of the Waikato tribes were labelled as rebels. Now, that doesn't mean that the Crown didn't commit any wrongs against Ngāti Pawa or any of the other Hauraki tribes. In what's the date? I just can't remember, but it'll come back to me. But the Crown sent down a gunboat down into the Hauraki Gulf. And that gunboat unloaded at Kaiaua. If any of you know where Kaiaua is, best fishing chips in the world, in New Zealand, well, 20, 30 years ago. But they unloaded the ship there, the gunboat at Kaiaua, which was called New Brighton. Kaiaua's previous name before it was called Kaiaua, it was called New Brighton. The Crown then took their gunboat down to Miranda. Does anyone know where Miranda hospitals are? Yeah. Right there. And the river that's there, which is the Pukorokoro, used to be wide, and boats could go in and up and down. That's because the river flowed from the Hunua ranges out to Miranda there. And when they dammed the ranges, the Hunua ranges, then it stopped the flow of the water. Anyway, the gunboat went down to Miranda, and the gunboat bombed our pass site at Miranda. The name of the gunboat is Miranda, the HMS Miranda, which then became the place name of that place. So they named our place, they took away the name Pukorokoro, and then they named our whenua, a bit of our whenua, after the gunboat that killed our people. And so I was in Wellington last week with a group of students from Tāmaki College and staff. We went down for the first reading of the Ngāti Pawa Treaty Settlement Bill. And a lot of the MPs who done their speeches spoke about that act of injustice against Ngāti Pawa. Ka pai? Now, that was also a part of the reason why the Crown, they sent in their spies under the guise of as surveyors, and they weren't surveying the land, they were counting how many people were in the pā, so that they knew how many, so they knew how many bombs to take on their boats. Now, Ngāti Pawa were gathering there at Pukorokoro in preparation to aid Waikato in the invasion of Rangiriri. So, who here has driven past Rangiriri? If you've driven to Hamilton, you've driven past Rangiriri, just after the kaupata, the turn. And that's another site of one of New Zealand's biggest battle sites. Now, Ngāti Pawa were the reinforcements for Waikato in that Rangiriri battle. Now, the Crown went down to Miranda, down to Pukorokoro to bomb us, so that when they invaded Rangiriri, the Waikato Māori had no reinforcements, or no one to come in from and flank the Crown soldiers. So yeah, you can just see it. It's behind there's a ridge of Maungarei here, but it's just behind, off in the distance. That's Kohukohunui. Ka pai? So as Māori, we believe that north is that way and south is that way, because the head of the fish is that way and the tail of the fish is that way. Ka pai? So north for Māori is pointing that way to Wellington. Wellington is north and Maungarei is south. Now, as Māori, we describe that in Now, with metaphors like ko mōkau ki runga. Mōkau is above. Anyone know where Mōkau is? Outside of Te Kuiti on the way towards New Plymouth. Anyone been to New Plymouth? Driven down? Along the coastline there? You would have driven through a town called Mōkau. That is the northernmost boundary for us Tainui people. You can see Taranaki, the mountains, right there on the back doorstep of Mōkau. So, and then Tāmaki ki Raro, Auckland below. Manga Toa. Has anyone been to Manga Toa? If you've has anyone driven through Te Awamutu? Driven through Kihikihi? Then you should know where Manga Toa is. Up the back there. Okay? So Manga Toa is centre. It's a little town just over, it's a little place just outside of Kihikihi. And that's the centre of the Tainui canoe. North is Mōkau. Yeah, that's the prow. Mōkau is the prow. Tāmaki is the kei, or the stern of the waka. And Manga Toa is the centre. That's how we as Māori describe our tribal boundaries. But we use it in the form of a canoe. Manga Toa, Mōkau ki runga. Mōkau is the prow. Tāmaki ki Raro. Tāmaki is the stern. Manga Toa ki Wainga Nui. Pare Waikato. Waikato, or the west coast, is that stuff? That's stuff? Oh, that's port. So the west coast is port, and Hauraki is the opposite of the canoe. So that's how we as Māori describe our tribal boundaries, by using the waka. Not all iwi do that. My iwi do that. But other iwi, like our whaia at the back there, her people use mountains to describe their house. Kapai, so some will use mountains to depict pillars in a house that uphold the house, and the sky is the roof, and the earth is the base or the foundation. Yeah, kia ora. Kia ora.
Thank you.
Come around here. Kia ora. So there are I'm going to tell two stories about the naming of this mountain, and one has to do with the captain of the Tainui Waka. Oh, that doesn't help. The sails have set on the waka. So the first story that I'm going to tell is the story about Hoturoa, who was the captain of the Tainui Waka. Now the Tainui Waka is the ancestral waka for Ngāti Pāoa. Just like every other tribe, every other iwi and hapu whānau have an ancestral waka which they connect to. For us as Ngāti Pāoa, we are Tainui people. We are very proud to be Tainui people here in Tāmaki Makaurau. And so the captain of the Tainui Waka, his name was Hoturoa. Can everyone say Hotu?
Hotu.
Roa.
Roa.
Kapai.
Kapai.
And the Ngāti Pāoa people are direct descendants of Hoturoa. And if I wanted to, I could recite my genealogy all the way back to Hoturoa. Now, Hoturoa captained the canoe from the time it departed Raiatea, which is actually next to Porapora. Any of you been on holiday in Porapora? Take me. Take me home. But Raiatea, they set sail from Raiatea and they arrived here via the Cook Islands. And so in 1350, the Tainui Waka came to Aotearoa on the Pacific Ocean, landed at a place in the Bay of Plenty called Whangaparawa. Not the Whangaparawa over there on the shore, but the Whangaparawa near Te Kaha. Anyone been to Te Kaha? Okay, not far out of Opotiki, which was in the news last week, or the week before. Now the Tainui Waka landed at Whangaparawa, and the Te Arawa Waka had already landed at Whangaparawa. But what our tupuna Hoturoa done was that he instructed his people to make a fire, and to make that fire look like it had been burning before the others. And then also he made his people tie their rope below everyone else's, to signify that they got here before the other waka. So then he set sail from Whangaparawa. They set sail, and on the Tainui Waka there were only 40 passengers. 40 passengers on the Tainui Waka. And today Waikato themselves number 80,000. We number a couple of thousand. According to the census, it's 4. And then Maniapoto are about another 50,000. Raukawa are about another 30, 40,000. And so you can see from 40 people how iwi has grown. Now, the waka came up with its 40 passengers past Tauranga, and at Tauranga, Hoturoa instructed the people to throw an old lady overboard because she had broken a tapu. And so the price of breaking that tapu was that she was made to drown. So he instructed them to throw her overboard. And the Tauranga people today still recite that incident in their oratory, in their karakia, in their laments, and in their songs. Wahine whiua reretia ki tai. Whiua means to be tossed over. Rere means to be left behind. Wahine I whiua tia reretia. And she's the Tauranga people still recite that incident in their speeches. So the waka then comes up through Whitianga. The sail of the Tainui Waka snaps and breaks, the mast at Whitianga. And so then Whitianga is then called Te Whitianga o Te Waka o Tainui. That's where Whitianga gets its name from. And then it comes up around the Coromandel, and then turns into the Hauraki Gulf. So when the wahine on board, when their view to the Pacific Ocean becomes obscured, they start to wail. The women aboard the waka, they start to wail. And this type of wail that they perform is called tikapa. It's a real sobbing, and the women would hit themselves and wail aboard the waka. And the reason why they wailed is because their view to their homeland, whence they came from, became obscured by the Coromandel Ranges. And so then our people remembered that, and they named the Hauraki Gulf Tikapa Moana. Tikapa. So if we think about the Hauraki Gulf and its name, Hauraki, well, that's a latter name. But Tikapa is the proper name for the Hauraki Gulf. And women play a big part in that naming. And they wailed because they knew that they would never see their families and their kin back in Eastern Polynesia again. So that was the reason for whaling. So then the waka came down into the Hauraki Gulf, And there's a rock off Waiheke called Gannett's Rock. Gannet Rock. Gannett's Rock. And the Māori name for that is Horu Horu. Horu Horu is another type of whaling. And so when the women aboard the waka, when they got to certain points in certain places, they had to perform these traditional rites of whaling and other ceremonies. So when they got to Gannett's Rock, the captain of the Tainui waka erected an altar upon the rock. And if you've ever been to Gannett's Rock, it's just covered in bird shit. It's just white. It's white. So it's just covered in bird shit. It looks ugly. But the captain of the Tainui, I hope you didn't record that, boss.
I did.
But the captain of the Tainui canoe erected an altar and he performed traditional karakia or rites. A rite for safe passage into a new land. So Aotearoa being new to them. And so that rock is still there today. And it's a sacred rock for us as the Tainui people and for us as Ngāti Pāoa. Because that's where the tū ahu, which is an altar, was erected. Ka pai? And then the Tainui waka came down around Waiheke, and they named the island Te Motu Ārairoa. Te Motu Ārairoa. So the proper name for Waiheke is Te Motu Ārairoa. O kahu mata momoi. So an ārai describes a curtain, like a curtain, an ārai. And roa means long. So the island acts as a windbreaker for Tāmaki Makaurau. And hence the name Te Motu Ārai. The waka then comes down into the Waitemata Harbour. So if you know Waiheke Island, on that side of Waiheke is the Hauraki Gulf, or Tikapa Moana. On this side of Waiheke is the Waitemata. So the Waitemata doesn't go right around Waiheke, but it depends on where you are on Waiheke, whether you are swimming in the Waitemata or whether you are swimming in the Tikapa, in the Hauraki Gulf. So on that side, on the eastern side of Waiheke is the Hauraki Gulf. On this side of Waiheke, at Mātiatia Bay and Onetangi, Oneroa is the Waitemata. Ka pai? The captain of the Tainui waka then comes into the Waitemata Harbour and he looks up to this mountain and he looks at his pendant, which is a whalebone's tooth pendant. And he looks at the shape of the mountain from the sea, from the water, and it looks like his whalebone's tooth pendant. So, how many of you have seen a whalebone's tooth? It's sort of shaped like that, eh? If it's long, it'll shape like that. Now, if it's turned this way, it will look like that, which is similar to the shape of the mountain. If you've ever caught the Fuller's Ferry, you would know. Ka pai? And then he names this mountain Te Maungarei Puta Ahoturoa. Rei Puta is the Māori word for whalebone's tooth. Whalebone's tooth. Rei Puta. Maunga is mountain. Te Maungarei Puta Ahoturoa. So he names it after him, after his whalebone's tooth. Ka pai? So it's been abbreviated down into Maungarei. But according to that narrative, it is Te Maungarei Puta. Puta Ahoturoa. Ka pai? The whalebone's tooth is a very highly prized possession for Māori people. But for all Pacific Islanders, Polynesians, Melanesians, I know the Fijians perform their ceremonies with the whalebone's tooth. Tambua. Okay? Very highly prized possession. And so that's one story. Ka pai? Can we all say Te Maunga? Oh, torpedo. Te maunga,
Te maunga,
rei puta,
rei puta,
a hotu roa.
a hotu roa.
Ka pai. Hotu roa's whalebone tooth. Pendant. Ka pai. Is that a pendant, eh?
Yep.
Yeah. Not a brooch.
No.
Ka pai. So, the second story talks about a event when two sisters, Reitu and Reipai, were wooed. Reitu was wooed by a northern man, a northern chief from the Hokianga. Anyone here from the Hokianga in yellow?
Yeah, I'm not in yellow.
Oh. And in black.
Yeah.
Ka pai. Now this chief from the north, from the Hokianga, his name was Ue One One. Can everyone say Ue?
Ue.
One One.
One one.
Ue One One. Now he sends his pet bird down to the Waikato because there's no good looking woman up in the north. He has to send them down to the Tainui to get our beautiful looking woman down here. Sorry, fire, but not sorry. Okay? And he sends his pet bird down to the Waikato and at the back of the Harley power station in that area. Now, down in the Waikato, we have lakes which have similar place names to places in the north. Like we have a lake at the back of the Harley power station called Whangape, which is a Whangape in the north.
Yeah.
We have a Waikare, Lake Waikare, which is in the Bay of Islands. We have other place names. Now, I'm sure our tupuna whaia, our two ladies, took those names to the north and named those places up there, not the other way around. So Ue One One sends his pet bird down to the Waikato, and these two sisters jump on board. They fly, return trip back to Tāmaki Makaurau, here towards Tāmaki Makaurau, as they come over the hills out towards Port Waikato. One of the wings of the bird clips the side of the mountain range there, and it causes water to gush out of the ground, and that forms a waterfall. So if you've ever driven out to Port Waikato and you look to the left-hand side, you would notice there are some waterfalls that fall down along the mountain range there, the hill range there. That was caused from that bird. That bird comes over Pukekohe, Waiuku, Karaka, in towards the Manukau Harbour. And as the bird approaches Maungarei Mountain, the winds start to die down. And there is nothing for the bird to glide with or soar with. And so the two twin sisters name that area or that mountain Ngā Hau Maungarei. Ngā Hau Maungarei, or the lazy winds. Ngā Hau are the winds. Maungarei is the Māori word for lazy. Not monsieur, not mangry, not manguri. Maungarei. And I have to often remind my Polynesian brothers and sisters to stop calling it mangry and manguri and all of these other nicknames, because it's Maungarei. And that's where the name Maungarei comes from that story. So as they come towards Maungarei, they look towards Maungarei, it's not ideal for landing and resting. They look towards Maunga Whau, Mount Eden, same. It's not an ideal place to land and rest. They look towards Maunga Kia, One Tree Hill, same. It's not an ideal place to rest. So Mount Eden, Maungarei, One Tree Hill, Maungarei Mountain, not good places. They look to the east, to this mountain, and they see this mountain here, and they choose this place to land. The bird comes in here, lands. The two sisters hop off the bird. The first sister to get off the bird is Reipai. And then she has naming rights to the mountain, which then becomes Te Maunga Areipai. Ka pai? So then you can again see how the name Reipai has been shortened down to Rei, Maungarei. Ka pai? So 2 stories. Te Maungarei puta, te Maungarei puta a Hoturoa. Can everyone say that? Te Maungarei puta a Hoturoa. And can everyone say te maunga a Reipai? Te maunga ka pai. Now the 2 sisters rest here on their bird before they depart again for the north, and they fly towards Maungarei. Another name for Maungarei is Maungarei Terenga Parawa, or the gathering place of the whales. Parawa is another name for whale. Another name for Maungarei is Te Whanga a Reipai, or Reipai's harbour. Te Whanga a Reipai. So from here they fly straight towards Maungarei. They stop at Maungarei or Te Whanga a Reipai, Reipai's harbour, and Reipai gets off there, she settles there, she marries there, and those people from there are half from here, or from us. Ngāti Wai, Ngāti Manuhiri, other northern tribes there. Then the bird carries on with one sister left on the bird, Rei 2, and she ends up marrying One from the Hokianga, which then connects the people of the Hokianga and the 90 Mile Beach to us. So there are a lot of intermarriages between our tribes and a lot of historic connections, and these aren't just any people, these are significant people within our tribes. You know, it's not just a commoner marrying a commoner, it's actually a royalty, if you want to use that word, or chieftain or chieftainess. So yeah, those are 2 stories for how this mountain gets its name. Te Maunga a Reipai and Te Maungarei puta a Hoturoa. Now, if we think about Rangitoto over here, now the full name for Rangitoto is Te Rangi I Toto Mia Ai Te Ihu o Tamatekapua. Te Rangi I Toto Mia Ai Te Ihu o Tamatekapua. And this is how the story goes. As Hoturoa, the captain of the Tainui Waka, when he left the Cook Islands, and the captain of the Te Arawa Waka, they are cousins, his name is Tamatekapua. Tamatekapua requests that Hoturoa gift him or hand over his tohunga to recite the appropriate incantations so that they can have a safe journey to Aotearoa, because they had been in a whirlpool out of the ocean between Tahiti and the Cook Islands. So Hoturoa then allows for Ngā Toroirangi, who was the tohunga aboard the Tainui Waka, to then go on the Te Arawa Waka. While Ngā Toroirangi is aboard the Te Arawa Waka, he ties a rope to his wife's toe, and that he ties it in a way where if anyone was to interfere with her, he would know. Now, while aboard the Tainui Waka, the captain of the board the Te Arawa Waka, the captain of the Te Arawa canoe jumps into bed with Ngā Toroirangi's wife. When Ngā Toroirangi comes back to his wife, he's noticed that his rope has been, it wasn't how he left it. So then he starts to recite prayers to cause a storm, and he causes another whirlpool, and the Te Arawa Waka starts to go down and down and down. And Ngā Toroirangi is then asked by the passengers on board, by the people on board, to stop what he's doing out of love for them. And then he stops, and then they come up out of the whirlpool, and they have safe passage to Aotearoa. But also, while in Rarotonga in the Cook Islands, Tama Te Kapua has taken one of Hoturoa's wives aboard his waka and brought her here to Aotearoa. When they get to here to the Waitemata Harbour, Hoturoa is angered. He looks for Tama Te Kapua in the Te Arawa waka, and he finds them in between, in the inlet between Rangitoto Island and Motutapu Island. And Tama Te Kapua and the Te Arawa waka are hiding in between the two islands. Hoturoa sails in, he gets out of his waka, and he punches his cousin Tama Te Kapua in the nose. And so that event is remembered in the naming of the Mount of Rangitoto. Te rangi I totongia ai te ihu o Tama Te Kapua. The day when Tama's nose was made to bleed. That is the full name for Rangitoto. Can everyone repeat after me? Te rangi I totongia
Totonia.
ai
Ai.
te
Te.
ihu
Ihu. O.
Tama Te Kapua. The day, what did I say? The day that Tama's nose was made to bleed. That is the full name for Rangitoto. Now, our Te Arawa relations, they say it's the other way around. And they say, Te rangi I totongia ai te ihu o Hoturoa. And we say, no, get the story right. It was your tupuna who got knocked out, not ours. So, have a think about that. Why do we abbreviate names? Is it just because it's easier to say? Or is it out of pure laziness? Or is it because we don't know these stories or these narratives that are attached to these place names? But that is Rangitoto. Now, just down here, people, is Te Tauoma. Now, the St. John's, Colin Maiden fields, the countdown, the netball courts, the soccer fields over there, the swim smart over there, that is all on Te Tauoma mountain. All of this. So this hill down here was a mountain, and it was 50 meters tall, and it was a double cratered volcano right there. Look at it now. It's just industrial use. So that's Te Tauoma Maunga, and that erupted 1,000 years before this. So in Māori terms, from a Māori worldview, we regard Te Tauoma as the tuakana, even though it is small. But because it popped out first, it outranks this. Even though this guy is, or this maunga is bigger. Kapai, size doesn't matter. So that's Te Tauoma. Now the Pākehā name for Te Tauoma is Purchase Hill. Purchase with no E.